Hello and welcome to my presentation called Currency Valuation in Myanmar. I hope you will like it. It's an interesting project. The interesting thing about it is the data set. What we're working from is a group of about 10 years of historical data of 38 exchange rates from different currencies that can be traded with the Myanmar Chat domestically only. And we're trying to answer the question here, does it make sense to predict these exchange rates, specifically the one with the United States dollar, which is the most important, using general linear models and this historical data? Typical wisdom would say this is a terrible choice and you shouldn't attempt it. However, it works here and we'll show why. Please join me in the General Assembly. Alright, so for those of you who don't know, Myanmar looks like this. They got lots of pagodas and it's a very ancient country. Was formerly a British colony, and it's wedged here in between China, Thailand, Laos, India, and Bangladesh. And it doesn't share any borders with Vietnam or Cambodia, but they all play badminton together in the Southeast Asia Games. If you haven't been there, I highly recommend it, though maybe wait a little bit because they're going through a period of some turmoil right now. Okay, let's get into it. So there's 38 exchange rates. And I won't get into all the different exchange rate valuation schemes that there are. There's many different ways of valuing a currency. We can see some listed here. The floating exchange rate, the fixed exchange rates, dollarization, these kinds of things. They all serve different purposes, and United States dollar, the euro, the ruble, and even the Egyptian pound are completely free-floating, meaning supply and demand determine the price, along with foreign exchange reserves and import-export ratios, that kind of thing. But the rest fall into these other groups, like the crawling peg or a band. The Bank of England sets an inflationary target, but none of this is really possible for Myanmar. When the government changed to democracy in 2012, they decided that it would be a free-floating currency, and they started telling everyone every morning what the exchange rates would be. So usually when you see this kind of information, you get what is known as OHLC data, open, high, low, close. They tell you what happened in the previous day's trading, and that's what a free-floating currency is, but instead they wake up every morning and decide what it's going to be, and everyone is like, okay, this is a free-floating currency. So I would like to look at some of the data collection techniques that we use. So we just scrape this information off of the central bank's website, which looks like this now. The information is no longer really available, but if you click through, you can see, here's an example about some of the information that's available now. If we go all the way down here to exchange rates, right, you can download this Excel file here. So I've got that queued up for you. Hold on a moment. Let's take a look at that Excel file. Browser, and here we are. Alright, so as you can see, there's 4 rates that they give. They don't even give the full 38 anymore, since the junta took over everything and installed a new manager of the central bank. They just release the 4 daily rates, the ex-Arab rate, and the free rate, the mid-rate. So there's different ones for the money changers and for government purchases. And this is a way, the arbitrage between these is a way that they skim a lot of money away from aid. So there's some precedent for this happening. For example, in Hurricane Nargis, the government stole $10 million of UN aid, refused to let any planes land. A French plane that was full of stuff was forced to fly away without even refueling, and they frequently lock out all forms of foreign intervention in their country. So the mints, the money printing machines, are all on military bases, and military controls the central bank, and they release exchange rates every single morning. So we can be really certain it's not actually a free-floating currency, but it's still not clear how they're valuing it. So that's kind of what makes this study interesting. We used a general linear model, first by splitting up the data into different forecast horizons. So we read this paper here. Here, I'll show you this interesting one from 2020, which talks about using new methods of dynamic models to predict time series data. So we took some of these concepts, but we didn't really use the entire method that they describe here because it was too big for the assignment. So what they offer here is an example where you're trying to predict Singapore dollars, and the time before, time t minus 1, right? You're trying to predict Singapore dollars here in time t minus 1. The value is highly influential, but to get that one, it's maybe based on the one before it, but it also might be related to Swiss francs, Japanese yen, British pound, the euro, these kinds of things. So there's a dynamic model which allows linkages not just between certain variables, like a multivariate model going back in time at different horizons, but also with different lists of dependencies. So this is a highly complex dynamic model, which we weren't able to implement. Instead, what we did was we made 3 models. We cut up the data into 3 different time horizons. So the input values are matched with output values 7 days in the future. Then for the next set, we set them 14 days apart, and then for the next one, 60 days apart. So after the train test split, then we make our models, we test them, we check out the summaries, we find that the residuals are actually really closely arranged around 0, and the standard deviation is smaller than the smallest denomination of the chat. In the end, we find that we're able to very accurately predict what the central bank is going to do. And that's just really strange. We didn't expect this. We didn't expect this at all. So I can give you a tiny look at some of our results here. If we go down, you can see in this graph right here that we've taken the 3 linear models and we've predicted values from a set that were held back at the beginning. Each one of these is trained on a different sampling from the training set and tested on a corresponding sample. So we didn't train on any of the information that was used for any testing or for the production of this graph, which is nice. So we can see actually that our accuracy is really high. It's really, really high, even for 60 days out. And for some studies that we've done up to 180 days in the future, we find the general linear model is extremely good at figuring out where the central bank wants US dollars to be in relation to the chat. So would I recommend using this for predictions? You could, but I don't think that the purpose of finance in this way should be to speculate or to make a run on a currency. Rather, I think we should use this information to understand how governments, like the one in Myanmar, which is very opaque, can set their currency prices and plan for their economy. So thank you very much for listening. I hope you enjoyed, and I'll see you again next time.